Ladies and gentlemen, we're gathered here today to celebrate the homegoing of Highguard. On March 3rd, Wildlife Entertainment announced on X that Highguard would be laid to rest on March 12th. It was a game with potential and promise, but it didn't live long enough to reach it. It seems like yesterday. If yesterday was December 11th, 2025, when it was the final reveal at the Game Awards.
You know, sometimes our last reveal at the Game Awards is a teaser for something years and years away. But not tonight. Our final world premiere comes from 61 members of the team that built Apex Legends and Titanfall. 4 years ago, the principals founded a new independent studio with the hopes of pushing the shooter genre forward with a new original game. They've done it in complete secrecy, which is even more amazing because the game is very deep into development. The power of independent, self-published studios to push this medium forward is a growing and I think positive theme in our industry. And so tonight, you're not only going to get the announcement of the game, but also your first look at the gameplay. I've played it, and after you see this trailer, I think you're going to want to as well. Welcome to Highguard.
Not too many folks were excited about it, unless you were Jeff Keighley. It didn't help that the game was from the makers of Titanfall and Apex Legends. It also didn't help that Divinity and Star Wars Fate of the Old Republic were announced earlier in the show. Since its reveal, Highguard has been mocked to oblivion. Some have gone as far as to dub it Concord 2. Honestly, I didn't have that view or opinion on Highguard. Instead, I wanted more information. I was cautiously optimistic. We all know that it's a free-to-play game and that it's coming out on January 26, 2026. You might think this is the first red flag you should be concerned about, or the fact that this is the debut title of Wildlife Entertainment. Instead, it's the radio silence leading up to the release of Highguard. Since its reveal in December to the release date,
you get nothing!
Originally, Highguard was meant to be a shadow drop, but Jeff wanted it to be revealed at the Game Awards. You would think Wildlife would actually change their plans now that everyone knows that the game is coming out, right?
Nope.
It wasn't until 3 days before its launch that they announced on X that they would have a launch showcase on YouTube. Then on January 24th, Jeff tweeted this. On January 26, Highguard was released to the public on PC, PlayStation, and Xbox. It had a strong start with nearly 100,000 players on Steam alone, and from what we learned on X, they had over 2 million players on Highguard. Gamers, content creators, and streamers all showed up to play. Jeff then asked folks for their thoughts so far, and it wasn't as positive as he expected. So, not too many people are feeling as he hoped, but that's okay, that's okay. Highguard will eventually find his footing. Wildlife has a roadmap and a solid foundation to build upon. Everything's gonna be alright. And then 24 hours later, they lost over 80% of their players. Shortly after, the reviews started coming in. Highguard received a mixed to average reception from critics. Most reviews noted that while the gameplay is fun, It feels like it's trying to appeal to everyone. A messy experiment, a game with a strong foundation that needs more to build upon, a game that's not ready. In Aaron Baines' review on Push Square, he called it a jack of all trades, but master of none. In the article, Why Highguard is Facing So Much Backlash from Players, Brent Cope lists reasons players don't like Highguard, with the final game reveal at the Game Awards topping the list. Performance issues on the PC, missing game chat and party features at launch, character designs are better than Concords but they don't stand out, and the 3v3 doesn't work on large size maps. Another issue with the game is the lack of in-game stats in an online competitive shooter. No scoreboard, no information on assists, deaths, and damage depth, and there's no counter progression whatsoever. The devs had noticed the massive loss of players. In an interview with Polygon, studio co-founder, head, and game director Chad Greener spoke about it. Whether it gets 1,000 people or 100 million people, it doesn't matter. What matters most is that the game is loved by the people who played it. Lead designer Muhammad Alavi also chimed in on the notion of player counts. In an article on PC Gamer, he said, honestly, you don't need player counts to be super huge in order to be successful. Yes you do, nigga. Especially when you're a free-to-play live service whose revenue depends on microtransaction purchases. But hey, you know what? This is not all doom and gloom. The team has been making improvements to the game. They released a patch to improve PC performance and added a 5v5 mode, which was well received. They're listening to the community feedback and making changes to the game. Then on February 11th, Wildlife Entertainment announced that most of the studio had been laid off, keeping a core group of developers. Once the news broke out, many devs who worked on Highguard confirmed the layoffs. Some thanked the players who showed up and continued playing, but one dev in particular wrote a lengthy post on X titled reflecting on shipping my first game, Highguard. In this post, he discussed the Game Awards reveal and how Highguard was turned into a joke. He also speaks about the treatment from content creators and on social media, and it highlighted another issue with Highguard. Everyone I knew who had any connection to the team or project had the same sentiments. This is lightning in a bottle. I trust this team wholeheartedly. If there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. This has mainstream hit written all over it. There's no way this will flop. I could play this game all day. This is what we like to call toxic positivity. Look, there's nothing wrong with being optimistic, but saying things like this is lightning in a bottle, or this has mainstream hit written all over it, or if there's one project nobody in the industry is worried will fail, it's yours. Given the fact that this is your first shipped game, and those sentiments came from the confines of an echo chamber. You can be optimistic, but you have to be realistic as well. However, it's this statement that caught the eyes of many. I'm not saying our failure is purely the fault of gamer culture and that the game would have thrived without the negative discourse, but it absolutely played a role. All products are at the whims of the consumers, and the consumers put absurd amounts of effort into slandering Highguard, and it worked. And not too many like that. And rightfully so, as they had later confirmed that too many people showed up to play Highguard. Gamers actually gave it a chance, but it wasn't enough to retain players. Then shortly after, he deleted his X account. With player numbers dwindling, the layoffs, and the official website being offline, the writing was on the wall for Highguard. And then news broke that Wildlife Entertainment, an independent studio, was funded by Tencent. But wait a minute. On January 27th, CEO Dusty Wells stated that Wildlight was an independent studio without the support of a big organization.
So that was a fucking lie.
The problem wasn't that Tencent was a financial backer. The issue is that this was kept a secret while they were under the guise of an independent company, prompting many to put on their tinfoil hats and spout their conspiracy theories. Theories that Highguard was only shown because Jeff and Tencent have a partnership. In the story behind the failure of Highguard by Jason Schreier, we learned that Tencent had pulled the studio's funding, which led to the layoffs. They saw that the ship was sinking and decided to bail out before things got worse. It also reveals that the leadership's hubris was a factor. They believed they could achieve the same success as Apex Legends. Some within the studio wanted to release the game early, build a community, and gather feedback. But leadership nixed that idea. Originally, the game was planned to have 4 teams of 3, but it was cut down to 3 versus 3. Highguard tried their best to win back players, but to no avail. They released a balanced and technical update patch that added stats like assists and damage at the end of matches. They also reduced the Europe phase time, and on March 4th, they released their final patch, which added account progression, skill trees, a new warden, and a new weapon. In the account progression, skill trees, the 5v5 mode, and stats were added in at launch, this game would have fared better. Had this game been released as a beta as intended and not been the final reveal to close out the Game Awards, Highguard would still be with us. Let Highguard serve as another cautionary tale of what happens when you enter the arena of live services. If you're going to compete against other live services, make sure it stands out, it's fun, and most importantly, don't fuck it up.
Rest in peace.